Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ted here with you, and it's time for lesson 16. We're going to look at something new. That's right. Our lesson today is called Definition of Shapes. We've been looking at measurements, haven't we? Yes, we've looked at a lot of interesting and important things about measurements. Now it's time to look at shapes. Okay, now we're going to start off with 5 key expressions about some important shapes. Please listen to these key expressions. Listen to them very carefully, and please repeat them after me. Okay, here we go. Key expression number 1. Shape is the appearance of an object. Shape is the appearance of an object. Number 2, shapes can be flat or solid. Shapes can be flat or solid. Number 3, circles, triangles, and squares are all flat shapes. Circles, triangles, and squares are all flat shapes. Number 4, cubes, cones, and cylinders are all solid shapes. Cubes, cones, and cylinders are all solid shapes. Number 5, the edge of a shape is where 2 faces meet. The edge of a shape is where 2 faces meet. There we have the 5 key expressions for today's lesson. Now, we'll go to the chalkboard, we'll look more closely at our lesson, and we'll talk about the definition of shapes. Are you ready to go? Let's do it. All right, here we are, back with lesson 16, definition of shapes. Definition of shapes. What are they? What do they look like? Let's take a closer look at some very important and common shapes. First of all, what is shape? When we say shape, what does that mean? Well, shape is the appearance of an object. Shape is what the object looks like. We describe the object by saying what shape it is. Something is this shape, then that's what it looks like. That's the appearance. There are 2 basic kinds of shapes, flat shapes and solid shapes. Therefore, shapes can be flat or solid. Flat or solid. Let's take a look at some good examples, okay? Here on the chalkboard we see 3 shapes. This shape is called a circle. This shape is called a triangle. And this shape is called a square. These are 3 very, very common shapes. So, when we say what they are, we are describing how they look. We are describing their appearance. Here, circle. Here, triangle. Here, square. Circles, triangles, and squares are all flat shapes. Remember, there are flat shapes and there are solid shapes. Once again, a circle is a flat shape. A triangle is a flat shape. A square is a flat shape. Circles, triangles, and squares are all flat shapes. What about the other one? The other one was solid shapes. Remember, shapes can be flat or solid. Now, let's look at some solid shapes. There's this one. This, well, looks like a little box, doesn't it? And it has squares all around it. Aha! We call this a cube. This is a cube. Eh? Have you ever played a game with dice and you roll the dice? Yeah, it's a cube just like this with 6 sides. Each side is a square. This is a cone. It almost looks like a funny hat. Maybe a hat that a wizard would wear? Yeah, that's a kind of cone. You know what? There's a point on one end here, and on the other end, what do you see? Aha, a circle. So a cone has a circle on one end and a point on the other end. Can you think of any famous kind of cone? I think you can. If I hold it like this, what do you think of? What would you put inside of it? Ice cream. Yes, that's why we call it an ice cream cone, because inside the cone we put ice cream, shaped like a cone. Finally, one more solid shape. This is called a cylinder. Cylinder. It's also round, but instead of a point, it has a circle. It has a circle on both ends. A circle, and then it's surrounded in the middle. This is called a cylinder. Cylinder. So here we see 3 solid shapes. We see a cube, we see a cone, and we see a cylinder. Cubes, cones, and cylinders are all solid shapes. Once again, circles, triangles, and squares are flat shapes. Cubes, cones, and cylinders are solid shapes. There's one more word I want to teach you. Edge. The edge of a shape. The edge of a shape is where 2 faces meet. The edge of a shape is where 2 faces meet. Now a face is here, the flat surface. For example, let's look at the cube. Each square on the cube is a face. There are 6 faces in a cube. The edge is right here. This face and this face, they meet right here. They connect here. 2 faces meet at an edge. The edge is where 2 faces meet. And we can see examples of that here with the cone, face, face, edge. And with the cylinder. Face, 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 edge. The 2 faces meet at the edge. Okay, wow, that's a lot of good information today. We learned a lot of things about shapes. We're going to continue to learn a lot about shapes. So, before we sign off for today, let's quickly review what we learned. Okay, let's review what we learned in Lesson 16. The title was Definition of Shapes. We looked at some very common shapes. We said that shape is the appearance of an object. Shape means what it looks like. We also learned that there are two basic kinds of shapes: flat shapes and solid shapes. Shapes can be flat or solid. For some examples, we saw circles, triangles, and squares. Circles, triangles, and squares are all flat shapes. We also looked at some solid shapes. Cubes, cones, and cylinders are all solid shapes. Finally, we looked at the word edge and also the word face. Well, the face is what you see, the flat side of something. On a solid object, the edge is where two faces meet. The edge of a shape is where two faces meet. Okay, there you have it. That's everything in a nutshell. Good work, everyone, and we'll see you next time in math class. Bye-bye.